Hi, my name is Monica Duarte and I am a brand identity alchemist and spiritual coach, and I'm here to assist you in transforming your life and brand from the inside out. In today's video, I'm going to share with you the reason why I left my corporate stable job to follow my soul's calling. And at the end, I'm going to share tips to help you if you're considering in doing that. So if you're considering in doing that, you want to make sure you watch the video all the way through because the tips will be at the end. So just to give you a backstory, in 2008, I graduated from college and I landed my first corporate job working at a mechanical and / aerospace engineering and manufacturing firm in the San Francisco Bay Area. And at this job, I was super grateful because I got a lot of experience. I did have a boss, but I basically managed the marketing department. And I did a bunch of graphic design and provided a bunch of assets for the company. At that time, we had 26 locations around the globe. And so I was producing assets for all the locations. And I also would have meetings with the president of the company and present, presentations to them and management. And actually, one of the top clients that we had was Cisco Systems. So it was a really fun experience and I grew a lot, and I'm super grateful for that opportunity. And also for the fact that I was first in my family to graduate from college and land, a job in the corporate world. At that time, I was also really involved in the creative and advertising world in the San Francisco Bay Area. I got the opportunity to go to a bunch of different events, like exclusive type events in the San Francisco Bay Area for the advertising industry. I mean, I got to meet presidents of big advertising companies and CEOs. It was really fun. And I even had my own place, which is awesome, for being in the Bay Area. But here's the thing. I noticed that even though I had created this, manifested this dream that I had, I wasn't really happy. And I actually felt kind of empty in my life. I would ask myself, is this really as good as life gets? Just literally graduating from college and then working in the corporate world, and being part of this industry and, in the society. And it just didn't feel right to me. Well, in 2010, I went through a near-death experience in a car accident. And it wasn't until after that I started to realize that I wasn't really happy with my life. I also started to realize that I didn't really know who I was. Like, I had built this life based on, what society expects of us, or in a sense, what my family expected of me, because again, I was the first one to graduate from college and there was a lot of pressure and a lot of expectation to continue on that path. And I understand, where my family was coming from. Now, I also did that for me because I wanted to grow and advance in life. But what started to happen is after I graduated and after I got my first corporate job and I was kind of living, a decent life, a really stable life, I just realized that, I had fulfilled this dream. And I realized, I kept asking myself, now what? What do I do with myself? What do I do with my life? I also remember asking myself, who am I? Literally, who am I? I had identified myself based on, the expectations of my culture, the expectations of my family, the expectations of society. And then after I fulfilled that goal, I didn't really have a sense of self. And I realized that I didn't really know who I was at all. Two things that I knew about myself was that I was really creative and I love creativity and, the arts. And I love dancing. And that was as far as I knew myself. I didn't have a solid sense of self at all. The other thing that started to happen is after the car accident, I actually ended up getting really sick. The accident kind of threw off my body and I had developed some health issues. And it was after that also that I realized that I didn't really have a support system or, real friends in a sense that would be there for me. I was literally all by my own, by myself. And that didn't feel so good at all. So here I was, I had just gone through a traumatic car accident, literally a near-death experience type thing. I was dealing with health issues and I didn't have any support, and I still had to make sure that I worked so I could pay my bills, and be taken care of because I didn't have a support system. And that, again, didn't feel good for me. I didn't feel like I was living a fulfilling life. And that's when that question about who am I started to come into my mind. The other thing that started to happen as well after my near-death experience, I started to experience kind of out of this world experiences, and I'm not going to go too much in depth into this because I actually made a video about that. So I will post a link below so that you can watch it if you're interested. But basically, just to put it, briefly, I started to see orbs. I started to hear angels singing. I started to have prophetic dreams. And I even had a dream with Jesus that really changed the course of my life. And it was after that I honestly felt like I wanted to continue to live, because that experience was very hard and it was traumatic, and that dream just shifted everything for me. And here's the thing. After going through a really traumatic or big experience like that, you can't go back to normal. It doesn't matter how much you try. Those experiences really transform you internally. And I couldn't see myself going back to the same life, where I was working at this corporate job. I had built this dream that was mine, but also part of my family. But I wasn't really happy with it. And I started to realize that, you can build a life for yourself. You can have a lot of money, you can have a lot of things, but only because you have those things doesn't mean you actually have value. The real value comes from inside. So I basically realized that only because you look successful on the outside, it doesn't mean you're successful internally. It doesn't mean that you feel successful internally. And for me, that was kind of my initiation to get to know who I was, to realize that I didn't really know who I was, and to realize that that was my new path in life, to understand myself, to get to know myself, to get to know who Monica is, because I didn't have a clue. So about a year and a half after that experience, I decided to take the leap of faith and leave my corporate job and to move to Sedona, Arizona. So you're probably wondering, why Sedona? Well, Sedona is one of the top spiritual meccas in the world, specifically also in the United States. And where I was in my life at that time, I wanted to get to know myself. I wanted to work on myself. I wanted to heal myself. So I wanted to be around in an environment that supported that, where that was actually normal and healthy, and other people were also doing the same thing. And as much as I love the Bay Area, at least for me at that time, I did find some, groups that kind of did that, but I just really wanted to be fully supported. So that's why for me, I moved there, and that was really important for me. So when I moved to Sedona, I'm not really gonna talk too much about my experience there. I may make a video about that at some point, but just to keep it brief, for me, Sedona was about coming home to myself. It was about learning who I was. It was about facing my fears. It was about being authentic with myself and living from that place. And also learning how to listen to our inner voice. And I'm not talking about the voices in your head. I'm talking about this voice inside you that is wise and knows what's best for you. I like to call it my intuition. So I wanted to learn how to connect to that part of me so that I can make wiser decisions about my life that were actually in alignment with me. Because I realized that at that time, I was making, decisions maybe on survival perspective, but not all of them were actually right for me. My journey going to Sedona was literally about coming back to my soul, to reconnect to my soul. And Sedona has this really magical way of helping you to do that. Especially if you're an intuitive person or you're really energetically sensitive, when you go there, at least for me, you can really feel that pull to connect to your soul and to just do more inner work. And for me, Sedona is always going to be a home. I'm always going to go visit there because, again, it's just where I go to connect with my soul. And I'm so grateful that I got to live there. I lived there for 6 years. So why the heck am I sharing this with you? I'm sharing this with you because if you're watching this video, or at some point you've considered leaving your corporate job, or maybe leaving a life that no longer resonates, I want to share my experience to tell you that you can do that. That is possible. And that you having that want or that pull is actually your soul calling you back to you. It's our soul, it's the way that our soul communicates that there's something missing, and you can't really find that missing part out in the world. You have to find it within yourself, in your soul. It's the call of your soul to be more honest and more authentic with yourself, and to live a life that's more authentic and honest with who you are. But here's the thing. We actually all go through this phase. It doesn't matter. Some of us go through it in a really early part of our lives, like I went through it in my 20s. Other people go through it in their 40s. Other people go through it later in life. I mean, there's the whole idea of like your midlife crisis, which is around your 40s. And usually that's the time when we start to look at our lives to see if we really lived a life that was true to us. And the sad thing is, a lot of people don't. They don't live a life that's true to them. They just live a life based on the expectations of others or society. And they build this life that is not authentic to them. And in their 40s, they can start to feel it. So we all feel this call at some point in our lives. And there's some of us, not many, but some of us that are actually courageous enough to listen to that call and follow it, to actually take the steps to correct your journey, to get to know yourself on a deeper level. And then there's those people that will hear the call but ignore it because they feel very comfortable where they're at. Like they're too afraid to get out of their comfort zone and try and learn new things. But the sad thing is that for those specific people, they continue on this path, where they don't listen to the call of their soul, and they continue to feel empty inside. And that's not a really fulfilling life to live. So at some point in our lives, we have to make that conscious choice of following our calling, following the call of our soul, and getting to know and understand ourselves and work on ourselves on a much deeper level. And for me, I didn't want to be that way. I didn't want to be another person that finds fulfillment through things or through the outer world. I wanted to build a solid foundation for myself in my being. So I wanted to be a kind of person that's authentic with herself, that's honest with the choices in her life, even if it doesn't make sense to others, and even if others don't like it. So why did I leave my corporate job to follow my soul's calling? Basically to find myself, and I did, and I'm so grateful for that experience. And if you're watching this video, you're most likely experiencing that call. And I want to share with you steps or wisdom to help you take that leap of faith when you're ready, of course. Because one of the things too is that if before you can take that journey, you have to make sure you're prepared. It doesn't make sense to just jump in. There's times where you want to jump in and do stuff. But with big life experiences like this or transitions, you definitely want to be prepared so that you can make your journey as enjoyable as possible. So now what I'm going to share with you are tips to help you if you're considering leaving a corporate job, or you're considering leaving a life, a specific life that you created, that you're ready to just create something new and be more authentic with yourself, be more honest with yourself, get to know yourself better. I'm going to share some tips that can help you in doing that in a way that feels more grounding, and also in a way where I learned from my mistakes. So now I want to share that with you. But before we go into the tips and guidance I have for you today, if you like what you're hearing so far, please make sure to like and subscribe to my channel to help me grow my channel, and also to get more valuable wisdom like this in your inbox every week. The first step that I have is, if you're considering and leaving a stable job, or if you're considering even leaving your job to start a business, or you're considering leaving life that doesn't fit for you anymore, make sure you have at least 6 months of money saved up. And the reason for that is because you want to make sure you have enough cushion in case something happens. You can actually support yourself, because we can only plan so much, but we don't know what's going to happen. We could always have this idea and these goals, but when you actually start on that journey, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's part of the risk. That's part of getting to know yourself. At least with me, I didn't know who I was. There was all these unknowns. And so I walked in this journey not knowing a lot of things. And I had to learn in the way, in the journey. So you want to make sure that you have money saved up in case anything happens. You are solid and you have something to fall on. And of course, there's those people that are more spontaneous. And I consider myself spontaneous to a certain degree. But there's people that are more spontaneous and they'll just take the leap of faith, and don't have enough money saved up. And when I lived in Sedona, I actually met a few of those people, and I think I did that one time too. And it's really challenging actually to do that, if you don't have enough money saved up and you take the leap of faith and then you're literally struggling where you are and you just make your journey really difficult and hard, and you have to depend on other people to be generous with you to help you. And that to me, that didn't feel so good to me. And, I don't think that that's necessarily the wisest thing to do. So I just wanted to start off with that because that's super important. The second tip is make sure you have the clear intention and you stick to it at all times. So with me, my intention, why I left my corporate job and my stable life, was because I wanted to get to know myself better. And I knew I couldn't really do that in the Bay Area, not around. One of the things about the Bay Area is that, it's known, there's a lot of superficial people there. So it makes it very hard to do that inner work when you're literally surrounded around people that are not doing that. So for me, again, going to Sedona, I wanted to just be around that and to have that support where people didn't think I was weird for wanting to learn more about myself. And so for me, that's why I went to Sedona. And having that intention made it a lot easier to navigate while I was there. Because it's really easy to get distracted by other people's wants and needs, especially if you don't really know yourself and you're getting to know yourself. It's really easy to get distracted by other people's goals, dreams, and wants. So you want to make sure you have that really clear intention so that when you're going on your journey, you can make decisions that are wise. So that if somebody asks you, let's go do this, or let's learn this thing. And if it's not in alignment with what your goal, your intention is, you say no. And if it is, then you can explore that. So that's another thing that you definitely want to keep in mind. The next tip is you want to make sure that you make as many connections as you can. So for me, I had money saved up, so I kind of was okay. But when I moved to Sedona, I didn't really know anybody. I just kind of, I think I found where to live through a connection, but that's as far as it went. So I think going back, it would have been easier for me if I actually would have been more involved, even if it's not visiting a lot there, but at least through social media, that kind of stuff, to get more involved in the community there so that I could meet people. And then that way it would have made it easier when I was there to have more of that support system. But from my experience, you definitely want to try to at least build some kind of connections before you move there. Or if you're looking to start a business, build some connections, or whatever it is that you're looking to do that's new, that, where your soul's calling you to do. Make sure you build connections because that's going to make it a lot easier. If you're going to move to a new location, make sure that you visit a few times before you move there, because you want to make sure it's right for you. Sometimes when we go to visit a place, we fall in love with it and it's awesome, and we have that image of how we felt when we were there. But it takes a few tries sometimes to really feel if that place is right for you. And I actually did have an experience one time where I moved somewhere and I didn't really know the place, and it was part of me just kind of exploring. I knew that I was doing that, but it does make it easier to actually know what environment you're gonna go to, so that you know how to prepare, and also just to make it easier for you again. The next tip is to make sure you always listen to your intuition or your gut. Now, you have to remember that not everybody has the courage to take the leap of faith and follow the call of your soul, to do something that's right for you, to get to know yourself more. There's a lot of people in the world that are too afraid of that. They're too comfortable in living in society expectations and creating basically a false life that they're comfortable. So you want to make sure that you always be mindful of who you share what you are going to do with, and also listen to your gut with what's right for you, because people will fill your brain with fears, with doubts, especially sometimes with me. I love my family, but they didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing. To them, from their perspective, they saw me as you're doing something crazy because you worked so hard to go to college. you got a corporate, your job, your stable job, and you got a stable life, and you're going to leave all that to go learn about yourself? Like, who do you think you are? But here's the thing, again, when you go through an experience like a near-death experience, that really changes you on the inside. And it doesn't matter, at least for me, at that time, it didn't matter what people try to put in my head. Like, they didn't understand what it felt like. So again, following your intuition and making sure that you're very careful of who you share what you're going to do with, and making sure that they're actually going to be supportive is going to be super vital in taking this journey. The other thing too is, if it doesn't work out, and if you followed my guidance about saving up at least 6 months, for money for 6 months, then you'll be fine. You're gonna land on your feet. You'll be fine. But again, you want to make sure you have that cushion, and then follow your intuition or your guidance, your gut, on what is right for you, and make sure that you surround yourself with people that are supportive on this journey that you're about to go into. The next tip is, if you're going to move to a new location, you want to make sure that you do your research as far as the job market there. I mean, unless you have a lot of money, and it's not really a big concern, but I'm pretty sure for a lot of us, that is going to be a concern. The reason for that is because sometimes we'll want to move to a place and, start a new life, and they don't have very good jobs. Like for me, I was in the creative industry. Sedona is not for the creative industry. It's for, they have more hospitality jobs there and more wellness jobs. And I was okay with that. Like, I knew that I would have to decrease my income because of that. Because again, I was focused on getting to know myself. I wanted to build a solid foundation for me internally, so that I could build a foundation out in the world that actually matched me, who I was, who I am. And so for me, I was okay with that. The reason I'm sharing this is because when I lived in Sedona, there was a lot of people that would move there, that didn't have enough money saved up, and then they would, try to find jobs there, and they realized how little pay those jobs paid, and then also what kind of industry, what kind of jobs were there, and they were like, this is too hard for me. So you definitely want to do your research as far as like what kind of jobs are there, and what kind of industries are kind of like known there, and ask yourself if you're okay with if you have to take a pay cut, or if you're okay with working in those industries, because that's going to make a big difference long term and how long you're able to actually be on that journey. Next tip is, you want to make sure that if you're doing this for spiritual purposes, that you stay away from the shiny object syndrome. And the reason why I'm saying that is because in the spiritual or metaphysical world, it's really easy to get distracted. There's a lot of woo-woo stuff. Some of it can be helpful, and some of it is not helpful and just literally distracts you from doing your inner work and getting to know yourself. So you want to make sure that you stay focused, again, with your intention, and make sure that whatever you do, everything that you do evolves around that intention. And anything that looks shiny, stay away from it, because it's going to be a distraction, and you're going to waste years or months or years on something that's not even going to help you or support you in getting to know yourself better. The next tip I have is, you want to make sure that you stay up to date with technology, what's going on in the world, and to develop your career. And this is something, I don't really feel like it was a mistake, but it did take a little bit of work for me to catch up. Because when I lived in Sedona, it's like you literally live in a bubble, and you're so detached from the rest of the world. Like, it's easy to forget that there's people out in the world. So for me, when I left Sedona and I was ready to come back to like the normal world, I don't really know if it's normal. Is it normal? Yeah. I realized that I had a lot of catching up to do specifically with technology, and the way that, society had changed. And thankfully, I learned things really quick, so I caught up really quick, and I'm still learning, but I catch up really quick. But for people that, it takes them a little bit to learn, it's very helpful to make sure you stay up to with technology wherever you're going, especially if it's for spiritual purposes or spiritual work, and also what's going on in the world, so you understanding what other people are experiencing or going through. Because again, if you plan to stay in the spiritual community forever, that's one thing. But if you're planning to eventually come out back into the modern world, you want to be prepared. You don't want to feel like you were living in the Renaissance time and then you come to the modern world and you're like, what is this thing? You know what I mean? So you definitely want to stay updated with technology, with the world, and to continue to build a career. If you change careers, like you started off with like maybe like something corporate and then you're doing more wellness, make sure that whatever jobs you have actually support you in building that career as well. Because again, if you're looking to come back out into the modern world or the regular world, normal world, that's going to be very helpful for you to get back on your feet. The next tip is that sometimes you're just going to have to take the leap of faith. And that's just the way it is. This journey of going within, this journey of getting to know yourself is an internal journey. And it's a journey, obviously, you know, it's like you're in the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. So sometimes you're going to have to take the leap of faith, even if you're scared, even if it doesn't make sense. You're going to have to take the leap of faith and just trust. Now, if you follow the tips that I gave you, it'll make it a lot easier. So if something did happen, you fall back on your feet. So this is why I'm sharing that, because taking on this path is not easy and it's not for everybody. It's only certain people can actually take on this path of, doing the inner work, of learning to be more authentic and honest with themselves. And again, other people are never going to do that. That's not even important to them. And they're probably not ever going to consider that. So, but if you are, you want to make sure that you're prepared, because even when we go on a new journey, you have to prepare for it. You can't literally just start your journey and expect everything to work out really well. There's preparation that needs to happen. And if you don't have that preparation, it's going to make your journey really difficult. And I can tell you from my experience, I experienced that. I thought I was prepared, but honestly, looking back, I still had a little bit of work to do. And it made it very difficult. So basically, make sure you're prepared. And when you have the preparation, then you can start to, take the leap of faith and do things that are spontaneous, or, listen to your intuition. It'll just make it a lot easier, honestly. And my last tip is to have fun. This is your journey and you get to make whatever you want with it. You're the one who's creating this journey. So have fun. And again, if you follow these steps, it's going to make it a lot easier to enjoy it and not be so stressed out about finances, about where you're going to live, all these things that are really stressful that honestly take away from the actual enjoyment of the journey. Because the journey is not just about going somewhere. The journey is about the actual experience of going through it. And that's really important. For me, I was so overwhelmed by finances, making sure I was making the right decisions, making sure that, where I lived was the right place for me, that sometimes it took away from the actual journey and the experience of this really beautiful, really sacred journey, because it is beautiful and sacred. And again, not everybody gets to go through this. A lot of people, now I'm back in the San Francisco Bay Area, and a lot of people are when I tell them what I've done, they're just like, wow, that's a lot, or how did you do that? Or they don't understand it, because it's not for everybody. And the good thing is that when you go through this inner journey, when you go through this journey of getting to know yourself, it actually helps other people to want to also follow that path. And it helps other people to be inspired, to be honest and authentic with themselves as well. So those are the tips that I have for you, and I hope that you found them very helpful. And if you want to come back to watch this again to find reassurance, or just remember them, you're definitely welcome to do that. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure to do that, because if you are in a place in your life where you're looking to get to know yourself more, to be more authentic with yourself, and also if you have a business, if you're starting a business, maybe leaving a corporate job to start a business that's more authentic with you, I share a lot of valuable information and wisdom to help you on that path. And also next week, I'm going to be sharing with you more wisdom on the 5 dangers of being fake in the world and how to break free from that toxic cycle. So you definitely want to, again, subscribe so that you'll get that video in your inbox. And that's all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.